Good morning. Part 16, Losing the Boomer Blues. 2 hours later, the pilot turned on the fastened seatbelt light. Fred shook the friendly musician's hand, and they exchanged email addresses before he returned to his assigned seat. He was smiling as he fastened his seatbelt. Lucy could tell that the encounter had made a big difference in helping ease his phobia towards air travel, or at least for this particular flight. She was happy he had enjoyed himself. With their seatbelts fastened, they were prepared for descent. After the plane landed, Lucy and Fred patiently waited their turn to exit the aircraft. It had been a 6-hour flight, therefore it was a relief to know that they had finally touched down in New York City. Skip and his family lived in Manhattan. After retrieving their luggage, they flagged down a cab outside the airport, and before they knew it, they were on the Upper West Side, standing in front of Skip and Marilyn's apartment building, ringing the doorbell. Skip came down to the lobby to greet his parents. He had put on a little weight since they last had seen him. He was 6 feet tall and weighed 180 pounds. He had a neatly trimmed beard, short blonde hair, his dad's blue eyes, and his mother's rosy complexion. Hugging his parents, he said with emotion, "Great seeing you, Mom and Dad." Marilyn and the boys picked up a pizza and are on their way home. "I hope you're hungry. The pizza is loaded with every topping known to man." Fred replied, "I'm just happy to stretch my legs. Pizza sounds good, but I'm so exhausted I may not make it through a slice." "You'll change your mind when you see this pizza, Pop. I'm putting your stuff in the boys' room. That's where you two are going to sleep. There's a bathroom in there, too. All the comforts of home." "How thoughtful." "Thanks, honey. Your father and I appreciate a restroom close." Marilyn and the boys arrived with the pizza. Forrest and Cliff greeted their grandparents enthusiastically. Marilyn kissed Lucy and Fred hello and welcomed them to New York City. She put the pizza on the coffee table and walked into the kitchen to grab some plates and napkins. Returning to the living room, she put them down next to the pizza and told everyone to dig in. Marilyn was a tall, slender blonde with deep brown eyes. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she sported a small, sweet baby bump. "I hope you're both hungry," Marilyn said. Lucy replied, "I'm starving to death. It looks and smells delicious." Fred couldn't resist the aroma. Eyeing the largest slice of pizza, he quickly grabbed a plate and loaded it with the humongous slice. Enjoying dinner, Fred and Lucy chatted and caught up with their son and his family. Yet as the hour grew later, they became drowsy and ready to retire for the night. Hugging the boys, Lucy yawned and said, "Sorry, kids, I'm completely exhausted. But tomorrow's another day, and we'll be able to visit more then. Thank you for letting us use your room." Cliff replied, "We like sleeping on the living room floor. It's fun." Forrest added with enthusiasm, "And we can stay up and watch TV." Nodding their heads and smiling, Lucy and Fred bid the boys good night and headed to the bedroom for a good night's sleep. Forrest and Cliff got dressed for bed, and soon they were settled into their sleeping bags watching television. Marilyn dimmed the lights and said, "Keep the noise down, boys, so it doesn't disturb your grandparents. Night-night." The boys agreed and kept the volume low. Fred and Lucy enjoyed their short stay in New York City. It was 3 days of catching up with their son and his daughter-in-law, eating great food, and playing tourists with the boys. It was jam-packed with so much fun that Lucy promised to return after the birth of the baby, not only to celebrate and babysit, but to do more shopping in Times Square. Although Fred enjoyed the visit, there was no place like home. He was anxious to get back to work, changing oil and patching tires. The boys were so excited about their trip that they had packed their bags long before the grandparents arrived. They had been anticipating their summer vacation for weeks and were on pins and needles knowing they'd be bound for San Francisco in just a few more hours. They couldn't wait to see all the sights their dad had told them about, especially Fisherman's Wharf, Alcatraz, Angel Island, the Golden Gate Bridge, Golden Gate Park, and the famous Haight-Ashbury district. Skip rarely took his car out of the parking garage, but this was one of the rare occasions he needed to make an airport run. After he dropped Marilyn off at work, he returned home to take the boys and his parents to the airport. The traffic was crazy. Fred and Lucy and the boys were waiting in front of the building when Skip returned. They put their bags in the trunk, got into the car, and took off for the airport. Fred commented, "I thought driving in San Francisco was bad, but this traffic is outrageous. Precisely why I keep my car parked in the garage for weeks at a time. I only take it out if absolutely necessary." Lucy replied, "I'd never own a car if I lived here." "Comes in handy at times, Mom," Forrest replied, "like now." They finally made it to the airport. The nightmare traffic was behind them. The morning was still young, but time was of the essence. They got out of the car quickly, grabbed their bags, and waved goodbye to Skip. Once they arrived at the boarding gate, they breathed a sigh of relief. Rushing through the airport and going through security isn't any fun at the best of times, but when carrying heavy bags, it's agonizing. It seemed it took them more time doing that than driving to the airport. On the plane, Fred sat next to Cliff and Lucy sat next to Forrest. The boys had a middle seat, but none they didn't mind because each had a grandparent next to them. The boys watched movies and Fred and Lucy listened to music. After the plane landed in San Francisco, the fun began. Fred called for an Uber to pick them up, and since the night was still young, they settled in at home as Lucy prepared a quick dinner. After dinner, Fred and the boys sat at the table discussing places he and Lucy wanted to take them and fun things they had planned to do. Knowing how excited the boys were, Fred and Lucy had scheduled everything down to the minute. Fred had purchased tickets to some Giants games, knowing that the boys would enjoy hot dogs, peanuts, and home runs. Lucy ordered tickets to the Summer of Love experience at the DeYoung Museum so she could share all her memories of the 60s with them. Their summer experience in the city by the bay was going to be exciting and fun. Fred was pleasantly surprised when Forrest and Cliff started rooting for the Giants at the games. However, they remained true, loyal Yankee fans throughout the series between the Giants and the Yankees. Despite Forrest and Cliff's devotion to the Yankees, they ended up attending a ball signing event and had 2 baseballs signed by Will Smith and Buster Posey. After attending more baseball games at AT&T Park and participating in events celebrating the Summer of Love, the time had passed quickly. The end of the summer vacation was approaching fast. Boys wondered how they could fit everything they wanted to see into the last 2 weeks of their trip. Thankfully, Fred and Lucy knew how to remedy that. They took guided bus tours for the remainder of their visit, and much to Fred and Lucy's surprise, they too learned things about their city that they never knew. Bill and Judy visit Fred and Lucy. Lucy and Fred found their days rather quiet after the boys left and returned home to New York City. Everything was back to normal, but they missed their grandsons. Fred missed playing guitar with Forrest and watching baseball games on television with Cliff. Lucy was texting back and forth with them every chance she got. She loved having them in her life. They had just finished an early dinner when they heard the doorbell ring. "I wasn't expecting anyone, were you?" "Yeah, I'll get it. It's probably Bill. He told me he might stop by and help me work on the deck." "We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you for joining me."